Stephen King goes full soap opera with the evil twin plot.
He's like your exact opposite.
So he's Bizarro Jerry.
So, The Dark Half is obviously a novel by Stephen King, and it's probably the most autobiographical of his fiction work. Because it's about a writer, and he's a fine writer, he's never had any real famous work, but his persona of George Stark is a really famous crime writer. But the problem is, this persona is a little too real for him and his family. It makes him a bad person when he goes into that place and starts writing. He just becomes a lot colder of a human being. And so he eventually he's kind of forced into giving it up because otherwise it will be exposed. But he chooses to give it up and expose it and effectively kill George Stark. So they set up a gravestone and they have a People magazine and everything. It's just a fake gravestone, but a corpse does rise from its grave, and it is George Stark, who has effectively come back from the dead. And he is out to kill the people who killed him, but not Thad Beaumont, because he needs Thad to keep him alive. And so the plot is, George kills a bunch of people, and then he comes for Thad, wanting him to help him keep him alive. And the reason it is autobiographical in this sense is because it is actually the story of Stephen King killing his own pseudonym, Richard Bachman, as known for Thinner and The Running Man. And Richard Bachman was exposed, I can't remember how. I believe it might have actually been tax returns as well. And Stephen King decided to kind of kill Richard Bachman as well. So this is a story of giving up your evil twin. Now, the funny thing about Stephen King, though, is that he actually did bring his alter ego back for a town called Desperation, or... He had two books, and they were parallel stories, one written by Stephen King and the other written by Richard Bachman. So he, just like Thad Beaumont, sees his alter ego as a separate entity. But in this case, it's a literal separate entity who comes back from being dead. And I thought it was a very interesting book. Not one of my favorite Stephen King's. It's a good read, and I can't deny it's a good read. My thing is that because it's about taking down a crime writer, the whole point is that it's kind of an homage to crime stories rather than horror. So it's got that horror element of a fake person coming alive to kill, but he doesn't kill anybody in a magic way or anything like that. He just gets out a straight razor and slashes people. And that's fine. It's just not really what I was looking for in terms of a horror novel. It's a little too set in reality to be a horror novel. Except for the very end, and I'm not going to say a lot about the ending, but let's just say it just involves a frickload of sparrows. Just a bunch. Billions. And it's kind of it's not a scary ending, it's kind of amusing, actually. So it's well written, and I kind of like the personal aspect to it of Stephen King also killing off Richard Bachman after he was exposed. So he's writing about, it's probably kind of more of a cynical book than anything, like, oh, you guys want me to kill off my pseudonym? Fine. But it's a good book. It's just not horror. It's more fantasy thriller, I would say. Overall, I would still give it 3 Kings out of 4, because it's well written, it's a cohesive story. Even if it's not what I expected, it's still a good story. And if you have an interest in learning more about Stephen King and his life, it actually can kind of help with the whole Richard Bachman tale. So, if that is of your interest, I would say check it out. But if you're looking for more sinister horror, it's probably not the one.